All right, we are joined by Jonathan Panikoff. He's a director of Scowcroft, Middle East Security Initiative at Atlantic Council, joining us live from Washington, D.C. with insights on that deal. Jonathan, what might have motivated both sides to agree to this first phase?
Good morning. I think the pressure that we've seen has actually been unprecedented when it comes to the negotiations that both sides have been talking about for a long time, but mediators weren't quite able to get them there. The difference now is Hamas was facing, frankly, unified pressure in a way it hasn't from Egypt, from Qatar, but also, frankly, from Turkey. There's a picture that's circulating of Ibrahim Kalin, the Turkish intelligence chief, being part of this latest round of negotiations and pressuring Hamas in a way that we haven't seen. And for Israel, look, the reality is Prime Minister Netanyahu is incredibly isolated, even in Israel. A number in the center, even some of the center right, have not supported continuation of this war. And so his outlet really has been the U.S. And after the strikes in Doha, frankly, the strategic mistake that he made in undertaking that strike, I think it gave the U.S. and President Trump and Steve Witkoff an opening to increase the pressure, and we're starting to see the results of that tonight with the first phase of the ceasefire having been agreed to.
Well, Jonathan, that guarantee that Hamas is seeking about a permanent ceasefire and a full Israeli withdrawal is missing, from all the early statements from all parties except for the militant group. Trump himself seems very vague, saying something like all parties will be treated fairly. I'm wondering if you see this as a complication. And also help us understand why there is this hesitation on the part of Donald Trump and other international leaders. I mean, is this something that you just don't do to an ally like Israel, or is there something else?
I think you're certainly right that the complications abound, frankly. We heard a little bit from your reporter's commentary earlier about the question of disarmament. It's also a question on the Israeli side. The initial agreement has the Israelis vacating about 70% of the Gaza Strip, but not the entirety of it. At what point will Israel actually leave the entirety of the Gaza Strip? What will the international security force look like? Will the Israelis rely on the international security force to disarm Hamas, assuming Hamas does not agree to do it themselves, which they never have before? I think that the real view here, frankly, from Arab mediators and from the U.S. was, look, we don't have perfect answers to all of these questions. We're not going to have them. But frankly, for the sake of Gaza, and even for most Israelis who want the hostages back and for the war to end, if that's what this takes, the view was, let's go ahead, get through phase one, get the at least living hostages back. And as we do that, we'll start to see if we can build on that for momentum for phase two. I think it'll be harder for Israel to restart the war now than, say, it might have been 6 months ago. I think it'll be harder for Hamas to back away from its commitments. But there's still a lot that's going to have to come. There's a lot of the hard work, unfortunately, is still left to do here.
Yeah, I mean, the White House calls this the first phase of Trump's 20-point plan. You just mentioned step two. I wonder just how many more phases there are and what the next ones are supposed to achieve. Any idea?
Yeah, I think there's a couple phases at least. So my sense is you're going to see any additional Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip be iterative. In other words, the Israelis move back for the last 30% that they have in coordination, either with the incoming international security force or with other security guarantees holding. You'll probably have to see questions related to what the governance of the Gaza Strip is going to look like. Israel has long said the Palestinian Authority can't be part of it. Hamas can't be part of it. It's got to be technocratic. Trump's plan had a 20-point plan in which he was in charge of a peace board with Prime Minister Blair, the former British Prime Minister. I think there's real questions. Is that what it actually is going to be? Are those the steps that are going to come in? And what does it look like in the immediate days? And that's why the U.S. and its Arab allies are going to have to keep their foot on the pedal here. I think the victory lap and the relief and the size of relief that everybody has are very well warranted, and they're going to be once the hostages are released. And you'll also see Hamas Palestinian prisoners be released as well. Once that happens, though, if the U.S. and Saudis don't keep going and pushing hard for the next phases, the chances that this gets stuck in neutral, I think, increase. And so it's going to be really important for the negotiators not to let that happen.
Absolutely. I want to pick up on this particular point. You know, the follow through. I mean, are you confident that Trump is going to make sure he's around for all 20 points of his plan? I mean, we're talking about long-term issues like reconstruction, future governance of the enclave, for example, which conceivably could go beyond his term.
They could. Look, certainly the reconstruction will go beyond his term. I think the governance has to come quite quickly, because if Israel isn't confident in whatever Palestinian Arab governing mechanism exists, then it increases the odds that the ceasefire breaks down. I think Trump is going to be quite committed to this. I think he sees this in quite personal terms, that he was able to do this. He views it as now him alone having had the opportunity to be able to make this happen, and therefore it's his responsibility. Now, if it breaks down, will he take responsibility for that breakdown? Probably not, but I think it actually increases the odds that he'll want to be committed to it and want to ensure that Arab states, the European Union, others are also equally committed, and therefore will ask a lot out of them. I think the one thing is none of the external actors will want to see a breakdown. And I think the politics among both Hamas, which has really had its leadership decimated, as well as Israel, where the politics are changing, elections have to come next year, opened a pathway, frankly, for this to happen. And their politics also are going to make it harder to totally abrogate the ceasefire.
Understood. Jonathan, on the question of governance, we obviously don't have the complete name list yet for the exchange, but one name that has come up a lot is Marwan Barghouti, highly regarded and seen as critical by the Palestinians for the future of Palestine, if you like, but seen as a terrorist by Israel. So I'm wondering, how important is he going to be in terms of forging agreement on the future shape of Gaza and the Palestinian territories? And do you see Israel actually, saying, okay, fine, we'll give him a chance?
I think Barghouti may be the biggest question mark that everybody's looking out for, whether he's going to be included in the release of Palestinian prisoners. He's been in jail for a couple of decades. He's in jail for good reason. He was supporting and behind terrorist acts and has multiple life sentences against him. But he's also been viewed as one of the few people who can unify various factions of the Palestinian society, of both in West Bank and Gaza, but also of folks who have been traditionally associated with Hamas and with Fatah. He's the one unifying figure who always has high rankings. Now, you may remember a couple of months ago, the ultra-nationalist Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir visited him in prison. It seemed to be, frankly, a photo op, frankly, for Ben-Gvir to play to his own base. He had said, we will never release Marwan Barghouti, but it's clear Hamas has been asking for him. And Israel has released other terrorists in the past who have served, frankly, less time on their life sentences than what Barghouti has served. And so I think if he is released, there's hope that he can be a unifying figure, even if I doubt he'll be accepted by the Israeli right anytime soon.
Okay, Jonathan, we'll have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your insight. Jonathan Panikoff, Director of Scowcroft, a Middle East Security Initiative at the Atlantic Council.